All right. Hi, Zach.
Hey, how's
So
it
I,
going?
I haven't been keeping track, but I think this might be our fourth
Yeah.
marriage clinic.
Uh-huh. I think
Yep.
that's right.
hmm So thank you everybody for joining the marriage clinic. We're just getting started. All right. So what are we talking about today for this marriage clinic?
Well, this is so I have been thinking a lot about this because we get people who spend a lot of time saying, I don't have time to connect with my partner. There aren't enough
Mhm.
hours in the day. I feel like we can't do these weekly date nights. And I'm like, weekly, well, don't do weekly date nights, do monthly date nights or do whatever. But then I
Yeah.
was thinking a lot about how do you kind of take back the time that is available to you. And so
hmm
you and I bat this around for, I don't know, a year and a half, just kind of the different ways to be connecting, and ended up with this thing that we called How to Win the Weekend, because
Right.
essentially, there's 168 hours in a week, and some of those you
I
have to
actually did
allocate.
the math, by the way. I pulled out my calculator because I
Okay.
am not great at math, but I was like,
Yeah.
168, really? 168 hours in
Yeah.
every week. That's Monday through Sunday.
Or Tuesday through
So,
Monday or Friday
yeah.
through
Okay. All
Thursday. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm basically, but yeah, I mean, basically you have to allocate some of those for sleep.
hmm
Some, most of us have jobs that we have to go to. There are mandatory things we have to do with our kids, and most of us are on a rhythm, which is Monday through Friday we work, and then the weekend we don't work. We have time to do
hmm
what we want. And so I was trying to figure out, like, what is it that every couple wants? Well, they want to feel more connected and less sad, right? And sometimes that's at the end of the day. They want to go to bed feeling more connected and less sad.
Right.
Sometimes, though, what if it was Sunday night, right? But on Sunday night, I want to feel more connected and less sad than I did on
Mhm.
Friday afternoon.
Okay.
And so you and I, again, kind of bat this idea around and came up with this quirky little, what is it called, an acronym? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Acronym?
Yeah.
First letter represents something
Uh-huh.
that we called S.P.A.R.K. How do you add S.P.A.R.K to your weekend, and sort of use it to feel more connected and less sad at the end of the weekend,
So
which
it's
is
really
about
just focused.
what did you decide? How many hours in the weekend? Like 48-ish, maybe
I
50.
think you wrote out 55
Okay.
hours in the weekend because you have Saturday and Sunday as two full days,
Yeah.
and then you sort of attributed Friday night as part of the weekend as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So it's more about just how do you connect. We're not even going to talk about connecting on a weekly basis because that's the thing that couples come to me and like the time at the end of the day, realistically, especially if you have small children, which I think of because that's where I'm at. You also have kids, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm in bed by 9 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and my family we might have 4 hours at the end of the day where we're actually seeing each other, and in those 4 hours you're bathing, you're eating,
Yeah.
you're keeping people alive. So it is a challenge to connect, but I like that we've really just concentrated and said, okay, you have a weekend, and if you're going to limp through your week to get to your weekend, then how do you reconnect during the weekend? I
Yeah.
love it. All right,
Yeah.
in 55 hours. Well, let's hear it. What's your acronym?
Okay. So it's S.P.A.R.K, right? S.P.A.R.K. So it's
Okay.
5 things that you do, and each thing that you do is starts with the letter, starts with an
Yeah.
S, P,
Okay.
an R.
So Spark,
Yeah.
we're starting with S. Does
Yeah.
it matter when, like, is this going to go sequentially through time or is it just an S?
Well, I think S is first because S stands for share, right? It stands for share, essentially your expectation, your goal, your hope for the weekend. So on Friday afternoon,
Mm.
I think you look at each other and you say, hey, if on Sunday night we felt closer, we felt more connected,
hmm
what has happened between now and then? Or what hasn't happened between now and then?
Yeah.
If you're isolating the weekend, um, maybe it includes a couple bottles of wine, and maybe it includes not drinking at all this weekend. Like maybe it includes that we want to get out of the house on Saturday. Maybe it
Uh-huh.
includes that we want to clean together. And maybe you want to watch the game, or maybe you want to catch a movie. Like what is it that you think will contribute to this feeling of being connected? And here's the
Yeah.
thing about that, right? The thing is, what you're sharing is kind of your hope, your dream, your vision.
Your
Negotiate.
intention.
Yeah, you have to negotiate terms a little bit because maybe maybe I don't want to see that movie, or maybe, you want to spend the day cleaning and she wants to spend the day, hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's kind of the negotiating of terms, I think, that sets you up for success.
Yeah.
And when you can execute on those dreams, that's incredibly trust building. Like, it's really, to be able to get to the end of the weekend and pat yourself on the back and go, yay, us, we
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Somehow we managed to clean the house and go on a hike, or somehow, like, so I think that is the beginning, is really just kind of sharing your hope for the weekend, specifically with the question of, how do we set each other up to feel more connected on Sunday night?
Yeah. I love this. And I think the first time I ever heard, and I don't know if is this like a Zachism? Is this something that you came up with? Because I remember talking about going on vacation and how to set yourself up for an amazing vacation, which means when you're sitting on the airplane and you guys are taking off, wheels up, and you're heading toward whatever destination it is, that's when you have the conversation, just like you're having the conversation on Friday afternoon of, hey, at the end of our vacation, when we're coming back, we're flying back, like, what's the great story that we're going to tell about how we had an amazing vacation? Or on Sunday night, when we are laying in bed and we're like, oh, you know what, honey, this was an amazing weekend. What is it that you want to be talking about? Or when you go back to work Monday morning and your colleague says, hey, how was your weekend? What story are you going to tell your colleague about how you connected with your significant other? And I love that, because I love goal setting. I'm kind of in the habit. I read a lot of books about habits and goal setting. And when you verbalize, and even more so when you write down what your intention is, you are so much more likely to actually reach that goal, which means that in your mind, you might be thinking, I really want to clean the garage out. That's my goal. That's what I want to do this weekend. But you never actually say it out loud. One, you're not setting your partner up for success. You're setting them up to be frustrated and disappointed because they had a plan in their head. So you have to verbalize it. And two, it's much more likely it's going to happen once you say it out loud. So I like that.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of us don't say stuff out loud or write stuff down because we don't want to be held accountable. We don't want to be on the hook. But that not being accountable and not being on the hook doesn't lead to deeper connection. So that's why I'm saying, hey, expose your thing. And I wouldn't call it a Zachism, although I do like to reverse engineer stuff, right? I have been in both plane rides where we felt more connected and just like, that was so good. That was exactly what we needed. And then I've also been in the one where I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get off this plane and be away from these people and not have to talk to them for another week, because somehow we blew it, or somehow it just didn't go the way we wanted it to. And I just think we have agency to control the nature of that plane trip or that car ride or that Sunday night lay down, but we have to articulate it by sharing our expectations.
Cool. All right. So that's S. S in the acronym S.P.A.R.K is share.
Yep.
Okay. Next one is P. What is P?
P is play. I think we all can agree that marriages and relationships are hard work. That's a cliche. Everybody loves it. It makes you feel better about how you're struggling. But I don't think we recognize often enough that it's also can be playful and should be playful. And that we ought to find ways to put kind of the fun back in the mix. And it doesn't actually matter what you play. I just think you ought to insert something that wasn't there last weekend. Like, let's play tennis, or let's play a board game. Let's go to a toy store and pick out a board game together that we're going to play.
Yeah.
Let's play. I mean, I think it can extend into the bedroom, right? Like, let's play in bed instead of, sort of struggle or, kind of guess.
Can I tell you the funniest story? It just reminded me of play. It's probably too much.
Yeah.
Just you and then our attendees that are going to be like, Laura, TMI. But I interject these things. I think play is incredible. If I was to do a TED Talk, it'd probably be on play, the importance of play. And I remember one of the funnest times that I ever had.
Funnest is not a word.
It is right now, and it is today. Thank you so much.
See, I was buzzkill there. I'm just like,
big time. So I'm going to continue with this conversation, and you know where it's going. we decided that we wanted to play, and we weren't really in the mood to have sex, but we wanted to have sex. Like there was the desire, but there wasn't, like, we weren't really in the mood. And so we decided to go into the closet and put on the most ridiculous outfits that we could find and come out and surprise the other person. So it was like Halloween sexy time. And
Okay.
I do not, like, my husband came out in like a tutu and maybe like some tube socks or something, and a wig. And it was literally like the most fun. And it wasn't that we were turned on by the other person. It's that we were laughing. And the moment you start laughing and enjoying one another, oftentimes you have a way to be able to like reconnect, or it takes the anxiety out of the air a little bit, because sometimes the bedroom can be a place of anxiety where one person feels like they want to, they desire you, they want to have sex, the other person doesn't, tensions rise. But we inserted play by dressing up in these crazy costumes. And anytime I think about play in the bedroom, I think about the time that we dressed up in these crazy costumes, and it was so fun. I loved it. Yeah. Right. That was my little story.
I think it's just, I mean, I think it's about sort of turning things on their edge, right? I mean, just kind of doing things that are out of the ordinary. And I don't think that there's, the great thing is kind of the game industry is massive right now. And there's something that you can find that the two of you will enjoy. And it might be playing dress up, and it might be, again, playing tennis, and it might be just kind of going out and finding something that you just learning how to do something that you haven't ever done before.
Yeah. Or just, I mean, you see it in like all these romantic comedies, any sort of normal thing that you can do together, you find a way to make it playful. So yeah, you have to wash your car, but you could also get in a water fight. That would be kind of fun. That's playful. Just finding ways to make things fun and enjoyable and different. You talk about how music transforms the feeling in the household because it's playful, and we always have music blaring in our house. It's kind of obnoxious at times.
Well, and again, good example. Rebecca and I were spent last weekend in Oregon and had to drive home, and we kind of listened to a book about our kids for a little while, and we had nothing on the radio for a little while. And
a writer wrote a book about your children?
No, it's totally a separate thing, but it was about something that we were trying to learn about how to be good parents, which was fine. We should do that from time to time. But as the trip was dragging on, and we were kind of both super tired from the weekend, and we were we had about an hour to go, Rebecca just started playing just music from like the 90s, from just part of our story. And I would have to kind of guess what it was. She covered up the screen that had the song titles on it. And yeah, we just played Name That Tune basically for an hour in the car, and then relived some old memories, that where we were when we first heard this song, or where we were when we, were whatever, so it's
romantic.
Yeah. I mean,
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just taking kind of the mundane and making it special. Because we could have just put on a 90s playlist, but here you go. I see you writing it down. Ready? Here it goes. It's taking the mundane and making it magical.
Yeah, taking the mundane and making it magical.
Because they both start with M.
Yeah, I know you're really good at alliteration. Okay. All right. So S is share. P is play. A is
ask.
Ask.
A-S-K. Ask.
I have to ask you a question.
I think that part of why couples get into trouble is because they stop being curious, and they kind of settle into a certainty about their partner and about their relationship. And both of those start with C, although one's a hard C, curious, and one's a soft C, certainty. But I think that there's this thing that people do where they, we've called it several times roommate syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
Basically is when we kind of get so committed or so settled into our routines that there's just nothing left, or there's no real intimacy. And I think that can be cured by asking questions. And I think you can get good at asking questions. You and I've said it several times, we have the privilege of asking questions for a living. Like it's kind of our job is to ask questions. And I'll be the first to say it's kind of the last thing I want to do when I go home is ask more questions. But I do think that you ought to figure out ways to really kind of just uncover new and exciting things about your partner, so that they don't just feel like your roommate.
Yeah.
And my favorite question, if you were going to ask me,
I was going to ask you because I'm curious.
My favorite question is, who was your best friend in fourth grade? Because most of us haven't thought about our best friend from fourth grade in a long time. B, it takes you back to a part of your story, your life, that your partner is almost surely unfamiliar with.
Right.
And it lets you kind of remember what it was like to be a kid and to be young and to be kind of discovering the world. Fourth grade is sort of the beginning of consciousness. It's kind of the beginning of when you start to put together the memories that last. And so when you think about your best friend from the fourth grade, it's really fun to then let that become a storytelling process, right? What'd you guys do together? Where did you go? Are you still friends with them? What do you think they're up to? What, I mean, like there's a way to broaden that. So
I'm trying to focus, but I went back to fourth grade and I was just remembering my best friend for just a moment, as I'm sure all of our attendees also are thinking about the fourth grade and their best friends.
Yeah. Who was your best friend in fourth grade?
It was an interesting time in my life, and I don't remember her name, but I have her face in my head. But I lived there for 1 year. I was in Granite Falls, Washington. Do you know Granite Falls?
Okay. Yeah.
It's a tough place. And so I just I remember finding her actually when what social media platform was it? It was before Facebook.
Oh, MySpace or whatever?
MySpace. I found her on MySpace when I was in college. And I actually went back and I found all of my friends because I moved about every year. But anyway, if you want to deepen our intimacy, I can.
Yeah, but see what just happened? Like now we're talking about things that like I've never talked about before, but we're just, and I can go, whoa, you moved every year? What was that like?
Yeah.
How did you do? Like, what was that about? Or, and I think that setting yourself up to kind of just go into a new space is cool. And I think, sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know what to ask or how to do this, but there are uncountable assets that you can latch onto. There is a book of questions. There are card decks. There are games that you can play.
There's apps.
Literally, there's apps. I mean, if you're not very good at being curious, then use the app or the game to stretch you, because you can blame the game for the stupid question. You can be like, like, sure, let's go to the next question. So that way you don't have to feel any pressure to kind of come up with this brilliant question, like who was your best friend in fourth grade?
So brilliant. You must have come up with that.
I did.
You know what I really like is that it forces you to talk about something other than what is sort of the mundane, everyday conversation of like, hey, you know what? We've got a little bit of time. Let's talk about what we're going to do when the car lease is up. Like, I don't want to talk about that. Save that for Monday through Friday. But if you want to really like spark that connection between the two of you during the weekend, talk about something different. Get to know. I love, you said this earlier, is that look, we stop asking questions because we believe that we know our partner with certainty. And what I hate about that is that nobody stops growing. Like, you might think that you know your partner with certainty, but your partner continues to grow and experience different things about themselves. And they're a year older than they were last year. And they probably feel different, at that moment about where they're at, being 51 rather than 50 or whatever. So there are so many questions to ask, and it is an honor and a privilege that you get to ask your partner those questions. So use that opportunity to actually ask them. So I like that. Okay, so share, play, ask.
It's an interesting thing that you did that. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hang on one second, because I think I want to talk about this a little bit more for two things. One is I want to go ahead and give you a question that doesn't apply to the weekend, kind of a Monday through Friday question, which I also love. But then the other thing that you just said that kind of reminded me is that sometimes, like, the art of asking questions can be intimacy building. Just thinking about this thing that you just said, it's an honor and a privilege to ask questions. Like, for me to be at like a restaurant or something and meet a stranger, or even for me to be with friends and to ask probing questions, that could veer on inappropriate, right? It could
Well,
veer
remember we had
on,
that experience. Do you remember that part?
yeah.
You and I were sitting at a restaurant and we're catching up and we're just chatting, and we have a level of intimacy that's friendship, but we know each other well. And I
Mhm.
remember I stopped my level of questioning because it was veering into a level of intimacy that is not appropriate between you and I.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to stop there. And you said, thank you. I really appreciate that because I don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
Rebecca has that privilege to
Yeah.
ask those questions, or I have that privilege with my clients. And that's
Yeah.
the interesting part is you and I, we ask probing questions for a living, but it's recognizing the balance between, okay, I could ask my clients this because it's privileged, but I can ask my husband this because it's an honor, but
Yeah.
I don't ask you this because I don't have that level of intimacy with you.
Well, and that's certainly the point, but again, it's the flip side, right? That using curiosity to deepen intimacy is a thing. Using
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
to feel more connected is a thing, and I
Yeah.
think and that's why A is ask.
Yeah. Did you see the article? It came out a while ago. I read it. I wrote an article on this or something. I forget what it was, but it was like in the New York Times. And basically, there was this group that came up with a series of something like 33
Oh,
questions to ask a
yeah, yeah.
stranger.
Hmm.
And it essentially goes from, I think there's three separate sections of sort of level of intimacy.
Hmm.
And the concept is that you can have intimate feelings towards someone after you ask these 33 questions, where they start off as a complete stranger. You
Hmm.
ask these questions, you share with both of you, and
Yeah,
by the end you could fall in love, is sort of the
yeah,
concept.
yeah. I saw
um,
that.
yeah, and if you, there's one of your tools right there. If you're on a weekend adventure and you want to like go through all 33 questions with your partner, see
Hmm.
how many of them you know.
Hmm.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Share, play, ask, R. What is R?
Okay. Well, you and I disagree about R. If you don't remember, because
In the
I have,
original development of R, we
yeah.
disagree. I will go with your R today.
Well, I want to hear about yours too, because this is part of what I had did with my R is sort of veer off of the sort of completely positive train, because R for me stands for repair, and I think
Mm-hmm.
repair is an essential skill for couples. And there are places in your relationship that just need sort of repairing. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
skiing a little bit earlier, and it's one of my favorite metaphors. But
Yeah.
it's this idea that you want to keep your skis in parallel, and that's parallel. And in order to do that, you have to make little tiny repairs all the time while you're skiing. And
Right.
sometimes you have to make bigger ones because there's a
Yard sale.
mogul or a tree or something or a child that you have to avoid. But keeping your skis paired and constantly paired helps you actually, get around those things that are difficult. And I think if you feel like there's a part of your relationship or there's a place in your relationship that is not paired or that you're not in parallel, then I think you ought to spend a little bit of time identifying that and finding a way to be connected. Even if it's something like, we're really bad at this and I wish we were better at it. And I just want you to know, I don't think it's your fault. It could be that, right? That's a repair.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, hey, I know last week I was kind of absent. I worked late too many nights, and that you carried more of the parenting burden, and I just want you to know that I honor that. I respect that. It could be something
Mm-hmm.
really, really just simple. It might be something more, maybe more severe that you
Yeah.
have to spend more time on. But that's the part that I think is if you're not really skilled at that, then it can make it harder to feel connected. But I think the simple repairs are the ones that keep us ahead of the curve, ahead of the game. Like
Yeah.
when we, because it allows us to keep our head up and see the moguls and the trees and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. I
I love repair
really,
as a practice. I think I just think it's obviously I think you contributed to this article too about how do you manage conflict, and my contribution to that article was don't start conflict. And the
yeah.
way that you don't start conflict is you stay in a state of repair, because if you're in a state of repair, then stuff that happens will just kind of brush
Right.
off. If you're in a
Right.
state of disrepair, then the fact that you sort of accidentally left the milk on the counter is now a nuclear problem.
Right. Yeah, that's good. As I was thinking about a weekend, like if you're using our acronym of SPARK to win your weekend, to take the 55 hours that you have together and make it an opportunity for you to deeply connect with your partner, repairing, some people create an actual ritual of repair where they sit down and they talk about, like, let's say on a Sunday afternoon, they sit down and they talk about the things that didn't go well in that week. So they're not in the midst of being, I guess, sort of frustrated with their partner. They're in a neutral state, but they're kind of just going over and they're saying, Monday was pretty good. Tuesday, I felt like you ignored me. Wednesday was great. We had great makeup sex. Thursday, we didn't have a whole lot of time together. And you might be able to say, okay, like, now that we've talked about those, what should we repair? What needs to be gone over? What do we need to process so that we can move through the conflict rather than either sweeping it under the rug or allowing it to just continue to fester? And it might be an actual conversation that you have, sort of like the State of the Union conversation where you have it once a week. Is that kind of what you're thinking when it comes to repair? I mean, I
Yeah,
know that
100%.
repairing is small,
Yeah,
small little.
100%. I think it's just basically kind of trying to identify the things that are lingering and that are kind of bugging you, and
Yeah.
figuring out how to put it in perspective. Um, One of the most powerful repair conversations Rebecca and I ever had, I know exactly where I was. We were in a car on Greenwood Avenue in Seattle. We were driving north. We were right near the library. And we were in a state of life with a young kid and some money trouble and some just disconnect that was familiar to us in a way that was especially painful from a few years earlier. And as we were driving, I just turned to her and I said, hey, Reb, I want you to know that I know that what we're doing right now feels like 3 years ago, which
Mm-hmm.
was really painful. I know that it feels the same and that we can draw some similarities, but it's not the same. It's really different. You and I are more connected. I feel better about what's going on with us. I think we have a plan. I understand what parenting means. And that was just the naming of a place of, ugh,
Yeah.
need a name.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, that means so much. And we didn't solve anything. We didn't
Right.
change anything. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
fix anything. We just gave it a name,
Yeah.
and gave it a name together in a way that allowed it to feel less tense.
Hmm.
And so I don't think it has to be a major intervention. I think it can be, again, one of these
Yeah.
little corrections that helps you go. It means a lot to me that you said that is basically the end of a great repair, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or even just sort of like owning what's going on. I think we talked about this on the past podcast where, oh man, I just had like 2 or 3 days of extreme introversion where I'm mostly an introvert. There are moments where I can shine as an extrovert. But if I deplete my resources spent outward toward other people, I have to fill up. And there was a weekend where I just didn't get a chance. And I will tell you, I was an awful human being to my husband, to my son. I was incredibly irritable.
Mm.
And just the act of saying, hey, I know that I'm being a whole lot of words that I would want to say that I don't think are appropriate to say toward women. I know that I am being like this and I'm aware of it. And I want to move through it. I want to move past it. And it might just be the same thing. Like, I'm just exhausted and I know this and it's getting in the way of us having a good time. But naming it is a great repair. I
Yeah.
agree. It opens it up for conversation for sure. An opportunity to correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do you remember what your R was?
No, I feel like it might be like romance
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
because I always like a little romance in my weekend. That's how I
Yeah.
think you should win that weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Now
quite remember either, but anyway, okay.
we'll have to go back to the drawing blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blocks. Okay. Okay. So we have share, play, ask, repair, and then the last one is K.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's KISS, right? And I think part of why I rejected romance is because I was like, no, I got this. It's KISS.
yeah.
And my my experience in my own life, and also in a lot of couples that they always go, oh yeah, exactly, is that we kiss in two ways as married couples. We kiss in a see you later kind
Yeah.
of way, and we kiss in the kind of sort of awkward, we're about to have sex kind of, but we should add some kissing in the front end of it sort of way. Um, And
Just had a little bit of insight into your relationship with Reb.
Well, I just feel like, I remember when we were dating, we couldn't stop kissing. We were making out all the time, and we never make out.
So good.
I mean, it just doesn't. It's just not a thing that married couples do. And I think you should. I think you should, if you're gonna spend the weekend or win the weekend, once or twice, just make out for a minute. Or actually, the recommendation that John Gottman offers is 6 seconds. Mm-hmm. And what's great about that is it's just long enough to help you remember that you like being in this person's face, right? I actually find that what's more, when I talk to people about a 6 second kiss, they go, man, that sounds like forever, because it's like this. Ready? That's a long time.
It's long enough to slip them the tongue. That's for damn.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I found is that what's harder than a 6 second kiss is a 3 second kiss. Because about 3 seconds, I'm kind of like, okay, this is long enough. But 6, you can kind of rest, right? You can kind of go, oh yeah, here you are. And I think you ought to find a way to have a 6 second kiss a couple times during the weekend while you're standing up, and not while you're getting ready for sex, but like while you're on a walk, or while you're in the kitchen, or while you're, when you went out to get the mail or whatever, because it differentiates kissing from intercourse. Mm-hmm. And I think that they belong together in a way that is fine. But it means that, hey, it's not always just this, and it's not always just, and we could talk about all the different hormones that are released if you spend time, kissing. But for the most part, I think we ought to at least find a third way to kiss.
So you're talking, it's funny because you're talking about kissing, and what you said is find a way to make out standing up that's not sex and it's not a peck. And here I'm thinking, I remember what it was like. I was one of those people, I wouldn't say a late bloomer, but I didn't have sex for a long time. So I spent a lot of time making out, and it was one of my very favorite things. I mean, you probably don't remember this. You don't. I do. Females do. Of what it was like to get chafed on your face from facial hair, from rubbing so hard. Like just facial hair would rub you raw. Well, you get all up in that business when you make out.
Like
here's the thing.
If this is how you make out, you're doing it wrong. Oh, baby.
This is making out, right?
Yeah.
No, but you would get raw from facial hair because your face, and these are things that I remember when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I mean, like I was older, and I don't have that feeling anymore. But you start talking about kissing, and I'm like, why not make out? Why not say we're not going to have sex, but I want to lay down on the couch and I want to have like a good old fashioned, they used to call it dry humping back in the day, a good old fashioned dry hump with my husband. That's what I want to do.
Well, what I think is incredible is that, in the time when Rebecca and I were dating and not having sex, we would make out for hours.
Yeah.
Hours.
You would dehydrate you and make out.
I know, right? And so I don't know when that changes. I don't know what causes that or what, but I know I've heard plenty of stories about people who just that's just not part of their thing anymore. And I'm not proposing that you make out for hours over the weekend. I'm saying a couple times, try kissing for 6 seconds and just see what happens. Yeah. See if you remember what it was like to feel sort of that charge of,
I want to take this on as like a challenge. I mean, I literally want to do this.
Yeah.
We're going to, in Jackson Hole, that's where we're going to be this weekend. We're going to be sharing a house with a bunch of other people. Yeah. We're going to be the couple that's making out.
Yeah. Okay. Great. You think you should work really hard to make other people uncomfortable. That would be.
I love it. I think that's very cool. I would love also for participants that are with us right now, if you have an experience, like take this on as not only just to do all like S.P.A.R.K, but the K, I'm actually really curious. Like I kind of want to make this not just for our patrons, but also for all of our listeners to take on a challenge, to try and just make out with your partner. Just see how it goes. I want to see what the experience is for people. There are some couples that still make out. Do you know any couples that make out?
Yeah, I know some.
You do?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I spend a lot of time with a lot of couples, and
right.
They'll talk about making out, or they'll talk about, that sex isn't an issue for them, or that they do enjoy still kind of being up in all each other's grill. And but I would say most of my peer group is in the same kind of boat that I'm in, or that we're in. We play. I'm on an over 40 soccer team with a bunch of married guys and one single guy, and he comes in every week with the kind of the story of his,
so great,
his dating situation, or his trip to LA, or and he's on all these apps and stuff, and we're all just dumbfounded. We're sitting there going,
I know.
And then what happened? And you did what? And how did
You're like, I haven't done that for 30 years. I think it's really fun to hear stories of my friends that are single, and I'm like, tell me more. This is like something.
And I got, and I never dated, right? Rebecca and I married when we were in our early 20s. So I have no idea what it means to kind of try and meet somebody or pick somebody up at a bar. And
me neither.
You have to do that, right? You can just kind of go on your app and be like,
you order them up like food.
Are you 2 miles away from me? I'll meet you in a minute,
Oh, we are so far off.
Hey, another one of our mutual friends who's in San Francisco this weekend, we were texting last night, and he said, sorry, I was on a date. And he put it in quotes because he was researching Bumble in San Francisco.
Isn't Bumble a friend app?
It's kind of, a friend of mine described it as the classy Tinder.
Oh, okay. So it's not for friendship. Okay.
It's classy Tinder.
Sure. I'm really curious now who you're talking about. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Okay.
So here's the idea. You said there's 168 hours in a week.
Yep.
Monday through Sunday, or Tuesday through Monday, whatever it might be.
Yep.
And there's really about 55 hours if you count a little bit of Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday in your weekend. And the whole idea is to really try and make your weekend as intentional as possible, kickstarting your weekend by doing the acronym S.P.A.R.K. So for those of you who jumped on kind of late, S meaning share, which is a little summary of share.
It's really just sort of setting yourself up for success over the weekend. Ooh, setting yourself up for success. It's like 3 S's right there. Yourself. Okay, that's in the middle. But
OCD is on fire today.
Mostly by setting your expectations and kind of dreaming about this thing that you both want, which is on Sunday night to feel more connected. What do we want to happen between now and then? And can that be a thing that we aspire to? And again, it could be just getting through P.A.R.K, S.P.A.R.K, but it could be the movie or the hike or the cleaning or the whatever, So, yeah.
Okay. P, and I'll take this one, is play.
Okay. Yeah.
Finding a way to play. Taking mundane things and making them magical.
There you go.
3 M's.
Yeah.
All right. So play. Yeah. So just finding things like washing your car, but while you're washing your car, get in a water fight. Just finding ways to be playful with one another. A would be ask.
Well, and back to play, I would say that I actually love discovering new games, like new little board games or tabletop games. And I think if that's something that you're into, shoot us a note, because I want to share with you the cool games that I found.
Cool. All right. And me too, because we play a game every night. If you follow my Instagram, which you don't, but if you follow my Instagram.
I'm not on Instagram.
I know.
I'm on Abby's Instagram because I have to watch out for all the creepers.
I'm one of those creepers, but we play a game every night at the dinner table, which is really fun. Okay. Ask. Yep.
And I think that's just cultivating the art of being curious, like just really asking questions and digging deeper, because you can't assume that you know everything about your partner. And it might not be everything about your partner's current day or current week. You could just learn something new about where they came from and what that was like to grow up in Granite Falls, or what it was like to, travel to Europe after college or whatever, like there's all kinds of ways that you can continue to peel the layers off of your, get deeper into, to get to know your partner better.
If you're following, you're peeling layers and you're getting deeper. And R is repair.
Yeah.
So that I love, I mean, I'll let you take this because of this pairing of the skis made so much sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just finding that place that you're just not in parallel. It doesn't mean that you have to be in perfect agreement, but just kind of
Mhm.
coming back to a place of of connection around something that may be hard, or something that may be broken, or something that may still require some work.
Mhm.
And I don't think that you should use the weekend to take on something major unless you're pretty skilled at it.
Yeah.
Or, but I think you ought to be able to just to have a conversation that ends with, it means a lot to me that we talked about that, or it means a lot to me that
Mhm.
you did that, because that
Mhm.
is, that's connection. That's what it's like to, I think things that are repaired are often stronger than they were before they were broken. Um,
Truth bomb.
yeah. So
Okay.
that, and again, it doesn't mean resolve. I think repair is way more important than resolve. And that is, it's easy to do if you're constantly doing the little ones. And these are skis. For those of you that joined us late, these are skis going down a mountain.
Their fingers pointed at you,
Yeah.
boo.
Yeah.
And then K is kiss, which we just finished up talking. But find ways to make out with your partner and
Mm-hmm.
make it be something that is not a peck on the cheek and something that's not the preemptive. Yeah, make out with your partner. Get all
Yeah.
up in that cheek.
Usually you do it with your mouth, not your cheeks, but you can,
But you know what? Whatever.
whatever works for you.
That's right. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's Spark. And thank you for all of you who joined us. If you have follow up questions, nobody sent us direct questions, but if you have follow up questions, info@4better.us, we'll be happy to respond back. You have the ability to read those. I probably should have been paying more attention to you.
Yeah, I don't see any questions, but we have a couple more minutes. If you do have a question and you want to type it in here, I
Yeah.
will. We'll tackle it. But if you don't, I think I'm done talking for now.
I'm done listening. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, let's can we send our participants our Spark summary? Can
Yeah,
we do that? That would
yeah,
be really cool. We have an ebook and it is called How to Win the Weekend by Sparking Some Intimacy. And
yeah.
it's basically a summary, a little ebook. And if you want to share it with your friends or you just want an actual summary of that, I'll follow up with that and I'll send that as an attachment to the next email that will also have the recording of this if you want to rewatch it or if you want to have your partner watch it, because I'm assuming that you are by yourself watching this, but you can
Mhm.
always rewatch it.
Yeah, and I think I think it's important for us to say and to acknowledge that those of you who have access to the webinar, you guys are literally keeping the lights on for Marriage Therapy Radio. It's
Oh,
really, you're the ones who keep this funded and that keep us able to keep going. So thank you for that, and it'll be my pleasure to give you a free ebook.
yeah. Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Zach. Adios, sir.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for attending.
And to me.